Today we have Robyn Isman. She is a therapist with a specialty in parents with children of anxiety. And today we're going to discover practical advice on how we manage that, as well as exposure to discomfort and how that helps foster growth. But not just that, we're getting into screen time, we're going into the pandemic ages, and also effective strategies to help you find the right therapist for your family. Women need to empower women, and our voice matters. Bitch. Welcome to the Mom Bench Podcast. This episode of the Mom Bench Podcast is brought to you by BTRNation.com. Oh, hey, busy mama. Do you need a snack that is not just healthy, but also delicious? Check out BTR Nation. With low sugar, low carb, high protein, high fiber, and low sodium, BTR Nation snacks are perfect for keeping you fueled and feeling fantastic throughout the day. Whether you're tackling your to-do list or you're enjoying a rare moment of peace, these snacks have you covered. Plus, for a limited time, you can use code MOMBATCH to get 20% off and free shipping. So do not wait. Visit BTRNation.com. They even have a snack quiz so you can help discover your favorite healthy treats. Robyn Isman, welcome to the Mom Bench Podcast. We're so excited you're here. For those that do not know Robyn, she is a therapist. She is here, and you have a subspecialty in anxiety, and you work specifically with parents with children with anxiety, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like we have to just start this conversation off with the drama. Is that okay?
I would love that.
You posted what I thought was a very generalized standard reel on Instagram.
Yes.
And it went absolutely viral. You got over 1 million likes, and like, how many comments did you even get? It was like,
it's
a
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I think it's like, I might be at that. I don't know. It was like a crazy, it's also the first reel. Here I am, like going into Instagram being like, ooh, anxiety, let me help you, whatever. I think I had maybe 1,000 followers. And all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, oh, I have an 11,000 view reel. That's so cool. And everyone was so angry about it.
I know. So what the post says, so Robyn, it looks like you're in a Target.
I'm in a Target.
Trolleying around. And
my favorite place for B-roll.
Right? And it says, when a parent says, I can't make my kid do that, they'll be way too anxious, with a caption that says, also, if you're a parent with a kid that's anxious, you can kind of put them in situations safely, right, to expose them for them to eventually hopefully get over it. And it got demolished. Like, everyone had an extreme situation. And how did that make you feel? Did you feel anxious?
I really appreciate that after a day of being a therapist, you asked me how it made me feel. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
At first I felt like I should delete my Instagram and quit my job and leave my social work license behind, and I was a complete failure, because mean people on the internet is like a new type of judgment of yourself. I mean, they are very dark. Like, these people, they were very angry. I over time got comments that were, people should take away my kids. I would never let their kid near me. Yeah, the therapist, like, how could you ever be a therapist? This is what ruined my life. Like, it was so harsh. It was like, and here I was thinking, oh my God, I got so many views. And then the comments just started rolling in. It was really upsetting. So it felt upset. I felt anxious, and I felt like I didn't deserve to be there. That's how I felt. I was like, oh, I messed up. And I'm not an influencer. That's how I felt.
You're canceled.
I did. I was like, oh, wow. And then my husband, who works in digital marketing, and he's more he's like, this is great.
I slid in your DMs. I'm like, you go, girl.
I was like, why is it great? And he talks about the algorithm and like how it like keeps it going, and it's always like typos get more views, like angry things might get more views, like all of that. So I tried to just commit to it, but I had to use a lot of my regulation skills around it. I really did.
Yeah.
It was very interesting too, because working with parents of children with anxiety, it's not that sentiment does not exist. It really does exist. So like you said, I'm a therapist specializing in anxiety, and then my subspecialty is working with parents of children with anxiety. So I work with people with anxiety all day. That's like, I always say, anxiety is a gateway diagnosis, because anxiety describes the external symptoms. They're also internal, but a lot of times the first things people realize is that they're anxious. Then once they come in, there might be more going on. But anxiety is often like the first thing that gets them in. And so I work with people on regulating all the skills, learning about how to focus on your body and thoughts and all of that. But also, to be better at being anxious, you have to practice being anxious. So the way I teach people about anxiety is like a muscle. Like, you don't do squats just to do squats for the rest of your life. You do squats so you can walk, so you can lift, so you can lift your kids, so you can just function in the world. And so I talk about anxiety like a muscle. You work it out. You have to work it out. You don't just show up in your life understanding it. Just like you learn to read, you learn to walk, you learn how to manage anxiety. Some people do it earlier. Some people do it easier. So I always say, like, some people naturally, can do these things, and some people need to learn it a little more, and that's fine, but you can't learn something without practicing it. So I think so that's where this comes in, where I teach people, but also parents of anxious children, that we actually have to go towards the discomfort to develop that muscle. And that's what people got so upset about, because there's a whole world of parenting literature. I mean, you guys are both parents. I don't know how deep you go into like parenting books, but there's a whole world of literature that really is about like doing exactly what your kid wants and needs, and always kind of aligning with them. And sometimes that doesn't give them an opportunity to practice skills. So these people did not like that. And I touched something there, and I see it live too. Like, I have clients, nobody I've ever worked with has told me that they want to take away my children, but I have had people push back on the idea that we're moving towards the discomfort. So it was interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. But you also equally had a lot of people that did stick up for you as well. So like, as much as the engagement, had people come out of the woodwork with their own unique, I would say in a lot of cases, like extreme experiences that are personal for them. You did have a lot of people, even parents or, children themselves, that was like, no, actually, this works for me. And I think one person even said, you know what? Every person's different. And it's like, mic drop right there. And I thought you did a great job responding to everyone. You went way above and beyond, making sure that every comment back was so personalized. You sent your love, like you were very neutral, unbiased. And I thought that was incredible how you handled it.
As a therapist, is this like a standard technique that you use across the board, or does it kind of depend on the person? Because, you got some outlash from this reel, and it kind of struck a chord, right? With some people. Would that kind of technique not work with these kind of people? Or is it like with time, they would kind of turn around?
Do you mean the practicing being anxious?
Yeah.
So I feel, first of all, of course, there are people, nothing works for everyone, but of course, and it's funny you said, someone had said, not for everyone kind of thing, or everyone's different. It is funny on Instagram, because you're supposed to cover everyone in your 3-second reel, and it's a very interesting challenge. But so there's always outliers. What I will say, what was very, I don't say surprising, but I guess I was I guess I'm in my little world where we all talk about mental health and we sort of think in this way and know the literature around it. And is that I actually think this is something I do with everyone, because when I was younger, I used to say this quote before I was ever a therapist. I used to say, when you're uncomfortable, you're growing. I was a camp counselor. So I was a camp counselor when I was like 18 until I was like 23 or something. And my campers would be uncomfortable about a social dynamic or something. And I would say, when you're uncomfortable, you're growing. And I didn't know why. Like, I just kind of was like, oh, that's good. This is an opportunity. The thing is you change how you do it. But I personally, I work with people with many diagnoses, a lot of neurodivergence. I work with people on the autism spectrum. I work with people who are diagnosed with ADHD, people who have OCD, people who have specific phobias, depression, but then anxiety. There's like a subset of anxiety within that. And so because I have seen this all have a lot of this has symptoms of anxiety. To me, you can do this work with most people. You just change how you do it. So, for example, if you have someone who's diagnosed with autism and they might have, a sensory piece to it, you're not going to force somebody to like drown themselves in a sensory that doesn't work for them, but you're going to help them figure out how to handle that, because I personally just believe that there's always an opportunity for growth. So a lot of people on the comments of that were like very angry that I wasn't considering neurodivergence, when in reality, like some of the biggest progress that I've seen in my practice has been kids with neurodivergence who actually have truly needed someone to believe in them. Because when I say to practice anxiety, what I'm doing is teaching parents to believe in their kids. So like that reel is me saying to the parent, like, believe in them. Don't give up. And it's funny because people hear it as like this torture device, but I hear it as like, how sad that you would think a kid can't grow. Like, I'm like, of course they can grow. Will every kid get to the same finish line? Of course not. Like of course not. But to imagine that a kid can't improve a skill or make a new friend or just develop more confidence, like to me, I've seen progress in all sorts of ways. So I want to say the answer is I do it with everybody. Of course, there are outliers. I don't feel like all these people on this reel comments were outliers. I think a lot of them probably could really benefit from this approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it on the head, right? Like it's a 3-second reel with a generalized statement and, perception's reality. So depending on where that person is, how they're feeling, or things that they've experienced in their past, they can take it.
Yeah.
Okay,
totally.
So I have a very general question, right? But why do you think anxiety is so prevalent, especially with children in today's society?
Okay. Ooh. This is a fun one. Okay. There's multi-layers that I will tell you. One is this discomfort feeling. So we have taken away discomfort from our kids. So, and a lot of this, there's a book out called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And he touches on the generation that got cell phones the youngest. So this like 2010 to 2024, basically, like these 14-year-olds. It's a great book. I mean, it's a great, the concept of screens being part of this is important. The thing that I see as a therapist, and that a lot of therapists talk about, regardless of books and data and literature and all that, is that it is an immediate dopamine hit when you look at a screen. And when you're upset and a kid gets a screen, they don't have any time to learn how to regulate. And by the way, I'm pro screens. All my kids watch things. Like I am never gonna anti screens. Like I am like, thank you, God bless. Like thank you so much. Like thank you that I ended up in this generation. Yes. So that's not what it is. It's just that one of the things it's taking away from the kids is the opportunity to be upset, to be bored. There's like no boredom. And being bored is an opportunity to regulate, to have to wait for a commercial. Like there is no waiting. There's no pause. There's no, or I want to watch this show and it's on demand and I don't have to decide with my sibling or with my friend what show to watch because we can each watch our own screen or we know. So I say the screens, but I don't mean it in this like screens are bad. I mean, like, what has it replaced? Like, it hasn't given kids the opportunity to regulate their nervous system ever. They don't have to. And a lot of times when they're upset, like, what parent hasn't been like, here, just watch this when they're having a tantrum, or like with snacks, here, take this snack. And when it's one off or it happens, fine. But it's really, that's where I think one is that these kids have grown up with this immediate way to distract. They're constantly distracted.
It's like instant gratification.
You really have to sit in the feeling. Like, you have to be like, I'm upset and I'm just going to be upset. So I think also as parents, we've taught ourselves that like we have a way to make them stop being upset. But I really work on with parents on saying like, you don't have it's not your job to make your kids stop being upset. It's actually your job to let them have their feelings, make sure they're safe. But it's actually our job to say like, I see you're upset and I'm not going to change my mind. Like, I see, like, you can have, I'm doing this and you can have, I'm having this boundary and you can have your feelings. And that's the constant message. So the feelings are allowed to play out. Like, I have kids who go upstairs, slam their door, run in their room, or my 3-year-old, for example, the way he regulates himself is he just runs in circles. He gets upset and screams at the top of his lungs and like runs in circles around the house. And then when he's done, he comes over and he says he's sorry. And it's like amazing to watch this kid figure out how to do that. So I think the one thing is that they don't have the opportunity to actually distract. They're overscheduled. There's a constant like fixing going on of every moment of discomfort. One of my things my daughter hates the most that I say is when she says she's bored, I go, what a great opportunity for you. And she like hates that. She's like, you love it. And I'm like, I do. And then we can't ignore COVID. I think COVID, it's easy to forget about it. It really is. Like, I like forget. And then I'll meet like a 10-year-old who spent 3 years basically not socializing in the same way, figuring out masks, anxious adults everywhere. Like, the anxiety is just so high. And then also with the screens, and again, I hate to villainize the screens because it's not the screens themselves, but we forced kids to do a lot to like stay up to date. And I don't think that was fair. We like forced them to do it and then they couldn't really do it and they weren't socializing the way they should. And they weren't given the skills and then we took it all away. So then we were like, okay, never mind, go back. And then we didn't really adjust anything. So the heightened anxiety to me has to do with like the immediate distractions that are everywhere. And then also we can't ignore the impact of COVID. Like, it's just the social implications of that have been very high. So those are the two things. I guess I'll add this because I work with parents. The other thing is the movement of parenting. I don't want to throw out a specific theory because I don't want to be down with this theory because I don't think any theory in itself is horrible, unless you're like very abusive. But I don't think that like these are bad. But there was a movement that I feel like is shifting actually in the last like 3 or 4 or 5 years. There was a movement of completely swinging the other way from authoritative parenting and really being like more permissive. And
like
that
gentle parenting.
Yeah. Like, yeah. And again, like you said it, not me. But there's all these great things about gentle parenting, but I think what it did was it created these very anxious parents that because if your kid's upset, you're failing. And so also parents are fixing all of these moments when their kids are upset because they're viewing it like, I shouldn't be a parent that makes my kid upset. And so then then the kid doesn't get to practice the skill because the parent is so anxious about like failing. And so that's definitely a part of it. I mean, you could also go like, we live in an incredibly anxious generation, even us, like becoming parents at this time. There's an amazing book called Small Animals that is all about the progress of, it actually starts with like, remember milk cartons when like a kid was missing?
Yeah.
So like, it's actually a book about how like, were there actually more kids missing or was it this new thing that like we were seeing them? And then it became this huge anxiety about letting your kids play outside and like then there was and this book, Small Animals, it's a mom that actually somebody had called the police on her because she left her kid in the car. And then she got into trouble, but there's no actual law that you're not allowed to do it. But it's like the law of the people. It's like the judgment of the people. And all of that is actually just based on a rise in anxiety. It wasn't really a rise in crime. So like, there's a lot of ways that we've like made ourselves incredibly anxious for no real logical reason. And so it's trickling down from parents also. So like, I want to let my kid just like run around outside and figure that out. I was telling my kid the other day, like, people used to come in when the street lamps came on, like, and she was like, "What's a street lamp?" It's like, it's dangerous out there, like, and that came from the news, and that came from the milk cartons, so that's like a long answer, but like, I think it's a combination of the kids' experience and then also us, like the parents are scared. So because they're scared and they don't want to we don't want to fail, and we want our kids to be in like all the extracurriculars, and we want to set our kid up for success. We're then not giving them the opportunity to just be. And then if they're not just being, they don't have the skills to just calm themselves down. So then they're super anxious. So it's like, it's a cycle. It's a real cycle.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it too has to do with how much content we consume. But I thought you raised a really interesting point. Is the statistics worse, or is it just we're anxious? Like that kind of hit me in the head, like, oh shoot, like, yeah, I am anxious. Like even Halloween, you don't see kids out as much. Yeah. I live right next to a park. It's barely filled. If that was like me as a kid, it'd be packed with kids without parents. Yeah. And even you notice like kids that are probably relatively at the age where they can go outside and play by themselves, their parents are always outside or always watching. And I remember I just had a rule, like you could go to the corner and back. But my parents trusted that I was fine going to the corner and back. They weren't necessarily outside when I was of age. And now it's just not the case. So what you're saying is like, it's probably okay. It's just us as a society, we've made it not okay based off of our fears from what we see. Yeah.
A lot of what anxiety is, anxiety is a liar. Anxiety is a liar. That's like it's 100% a true thing. Anxiety is a feeling. It's an alarm bell going off in your body. It is not based on facts. So it's, so I'm not laughing at you. I hope you know that.
No.
It's like, So anxiety is, the reason that that's important is because just because there's so many little quotes I say, like anxiety is a liar, anxiety seeks certainty. It wants, that's someone I was trained by, Lynn Lyons, who's an amazing anxiety guru who works specifically with kids and parents with anxiety. And she says anxiety seeks certainty. And it wants to know. So like, if you can't prove to me my kid won't get kidnapped, they will get kidnapped. Because the only thing I know is that I'm afraid they will. The other thing I say to people a lot is anxiety is not predictive. So just because you have an anxiety doesn't mean it's going to come true. So none of that is a reason, in my opinion, to have your kids do or not do something, because we can't actually control that much. That's the other thing we want to control everything. So that's why we keep them inside and we keep them close. And then that's why also the cell phones piece has been hard, because now that we have the opportunity to give them a cell phone and we can track them and we can do all of this, it's like, why wouldn't we? But there's a lot of reasons not to. There's like a lot of reasons where kids should be able to like be somewhere where you don't know where they are. That should be a thing that we're allowed to do.
Yeah. Well, in Japan, like children at very young age, like I'm talking like 6-7 years old, it's not uncommon for them to go utilize public transportation and travel throughout the day. Yes. And citizens like literally will help these children do what they need to do, and you just trust, right? And it's a safe lifestyle.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head there. But because Japan is super safe, they don't have mass shootings, they don't have all the things that us Americans find ourselves living with. So it's kind of like apples and oranges a little bit there.
But you have to think of the chicken and the egg. So like that's the thing. It's like 100% every country has a different level of safety, but we also have to say like is some of that because of what we've taken from these kids. So I think that there's a combination. Some of it is just governmental. Like there's rights that exist that can be more dangerous. There's like, you can get all into that. But some of it is also that like we haven't let kids practice doing anything. So that is hard. But yeah, most countries are not like this. Most countries, the kids go lots of places by themselves and they're much more independent. And it's a much more of a village taking care of kids versus, oh my God, that's the enemy. I was looking outside in my backyard the other day and I literally don't even have a fence between my yards. And I have a dome to climb on for my kids. And they just put in a dome. And there are these two domes, these two climbing structures, maybe 5 feet from each other. Why do we both need our own climbing structure? I'm like, they could just climb. It's just so American. Like looking outside, I'm like, and this yard has I don't know. It all speaks to the same kind of thing where it's like, why are we so like, whatever. It's like, so when people ask about anxiety, like you could go on and on because everyone's trying to control everything and we can only control it. And we get so much news and we don't even know what's real anymore and all of that.
So like within your practice, are you seeing the trend that kids are anxious when their parents are anxious? Is there a correlation? Is there a genetic factor
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say mostly we see a genetic factor. I don't know if I would outright call it genetic. I would call it also behavioral. Like, so basically what I do it's called SPACE, and that's the formula I use for parents of anxious kids. And it's done by Ellie Leibowitz out of Yale. And he basically it's about decreasing parental accommodations, decreases childhood anxiety symptoms. So it's not just that they're anxious, the parent, it's that they're also controlling all the factors. So then the child ends up being anxious also because they don't get a chance to like practice being uncomfortable and practice these skills. So it could be like genetics where like, yes, this person's anxious, this person's anxious. It could totally be that. Like I definitely know people who had childhood anxiety themselves. It has nothing to do with their parental accommodations. They had childhood anxiety. Another kid has childhood anxiety. So that could totally be, but it can also be that maybe the parent is anxious because they just survived a pandemic or there's a lot of mass shootings or all of this stuff. So they end up like having these accommodations for their child. They don't ever want their child to kind of like have to have these experiences. And so they end up over accommodating. So the child doesn't get to practice being anxious. So it's a combination, but it's not separate. So what we talk about with anxiety is interpersonal anxiety. And it's the anxiety between a child and a parent and how the parent has to help. So the anxiety doesn't exist in a silo. It exists within the relationship. So they're not separate. And that is, I think, why the movement of trying to work with parents is happening. I mean, there's so many people who are focused on parenting. And the reason is because it's the most efficient way to work. Like I see results for a child's anxiety way quicker when I do this parent formula than when I work with a kid just week after week after week. I would say that's like a long way to say like it's sometimes genetic, sometimes behavioral, but it's never disconnected.
Do you think, and this might be a controversial question, but it just had me thinking like, you know, I feel like now it's very common for obviously men and women to be working. But I remember when I was even younger, there was a lot more stay-at-home moms. Do you think some of this has shifted with more working parents?
Really good question.
Yeah.
As I sit here at 8 p.m. without my children. It's a really good question. I don't know, because in my take of it, the more you let them practice being away from you, the more. So like my take on it is sort of different. Like I actually worry more for the people that are like hovering, like the hovering but that doesn't mean when you're a stay-at-home mom, you're hovering. So I guess it sort of is, it depends on your style.
Depends.
So like you could be a working mom and be super controlling and be controlling every minute of your kid's day, whether you're with them or not. And that could impact their anxiety levels. And then you could also be a stay-at-home mom who's like really good at boundaries and doesn't do that, like really is able to help them practice being uncomfortable. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I probably would say yes, but more so because families are under so much more stress. So I would say the two working parents create such a high level of stress for families because we're pulled in so many directions that I'm sure increases the child's anxiety. But I don't know if it's specifically like that the parent, because I think of the times where I'm out of the house as the times where my children practice their skills of being away from me. And then I come home and there's a secure attachment because I always come back. So like, it's not about, so I don't think about it that way so much, but I do think it's about a parenting style.
This episode of the Mom Bench podcast is brought to you by btrnation.com. Oh, hey there, Supermom. Are you looking for a snack that will fit your healthy lifestyle and allow you to keep up with your busy days? Well, say hello to BTR Nation. BTR Nation snacks are low sugar, low carb, high protein, high fiber, and low sodium. So it's literally everything that we need to stay energized and feel great. From protein packed bars to guilt-free truffle cups, these snacks are designed to support your active lifestyle and satisfy your cravings, which is why they are my favorite. But the best part is we get to use code MOMBETCH for 20% off and free shipping. So if you're ready to upgrade your snack game, visit btrnation.com, grab your favorite snacks, and fuel your mom's superpowers.
Kind of circling back to discomfort in our kids. And I know you used screen time as an example, but sometimes like my husband will give my kid like a snack and be like, oh, do you want, cause she's like upset. Like, oh, do you want to, are you hungry? Do you want a snack? Is that kind of like doing her disservice as well?
So it's so interesting. I actually, when I was talking about that, I talked about giving a snack because I think of them as similar, where it's like a way to, I think that if you do anything all the time, it is doing them. Kids, so I'm trained as an intuitive eating counselor. And one of the really interesting things is that the best thing you can do is start to eat like a kid again, because kids have you're born with intuition of if you're hungry or not. And then we sort of ruin it by being like, yes, no, like all of that. And having like goal, even from the beginning, like when you're feeding a baby and they're weighing them and they decide it's not enough. And so we ruin their intuition really early. So I think that's another way we ruin it a little bit, but I don't think anything ruins something sometimes. So like, I think if every single time my kid was upset, I handed them 5 cookies, I think that would be a weird association. But I have definitely been in the car many times and had my kid be, having a tantrum. And I'm like, here, take this snack, use it. But yeah, probably it's not the best. We should probably just let them feel their feelings, but we can't always do that because we have to survive.
Right. So. Yeah. Or maybe letting them react. I think the common thing that I hear throughout all of this, and, I see a therapist weekly because it's Me Thursday, every single week. But the one thing you both, like what you said today and what my therapist says always is, we're supposed to equip our kids to be able to make really good decisions for themselves, right? Like we're not there to control their life. We're there to help, be there, guide them, but ultimately let them, define their own success. Right. So I'm sure there's mamas and parents out here listening saying, I'm one of these parents, and I'm not judging because as you're saying a lot of this stuff, I'm like, oh shit, like I do this kind of stuff. We're like you're thinking of like Kalina's like snacks. I'm always like, do you want a bobo? You know what I mean? Like I am guilty. Okay. Not judging, but do you have tips for us when a child's anxious, different ways we can communicate? Because I think we're agreeing like it's good to communicate and let them feel their feelings. Like, how do we do that so that we can like kind of cut out our bad habits?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the first is always safety first. So like if your kid is having panic, high anxiety, if it's an older kid or if it's a kid that reaches for something dangerous, you always want to make sure they're safe. So are they in like, if you have a 3-year-old, for example, who's running around and you're worried he's going to hurt himself, maybe you have a room that's like specifically more safe for him, or you stay nearby. You don't just like walk away kind of thing. So safety always first, because a lot of times the reason we're trying to fix it is because we feel a threat. And so if we can kind of like say, okay, everything's safe. Everything's safe. So we can like take that threat off the table. And then saying to them a very succinct statement. So it's saying, I see that you're having a really hard time and I believe in you that you could get through this. And just saying, and I'm right here when you're ready. So that's like a very short. You never want to talk a lot to a kid who's having a tantrum. It's just, and not just escalating anxiety, any of it. Once you're in that part of your brain that's really anxious, you can't hear anyone or anything. So you're just saying, you're literally kind of saying words to say, yeah. So you're saying, I'm here, I'll be here. So that's a statement I would say, like, I see that you're really anxious. I know that you can get through this and I'll be right here when you're ready, period. And then you do stay. You don't go anywhere, because that's the other part. I was going to say the after part is also really important, because a lot of times after a kid has like a lot of anxiety, they'll feel very regretful and remorseful because they'll feel so badly about themselves. So I always just hug. I always say, like, it's okay. You had a hard time. It's okay. There's nothing about that moment that I'm going to judge about you. So I'm really into the repair after is really important. And then the talk for the parents themselves, I would say there's nothing wrong with your kid having these moments. And it's also okay for some kids, they last longer, and you don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You actually just are trying to teach them, like, anxiety is not dangerous. Something I haven't mentioned on this podcast specifically today is that anxiety comes from the fact that we're mammals. And the reason we have anxiety is because as mammals, we are trying to survive in the jungle still. So there's a lot of so if you look up something called polyvagal, which is all about your nervous system, it's about, like, we have alarm bells that signal from our body to our brain that there's a threat happening. And then we have functions that our body and brain do to protect us. So it's fight or flight, shutting down. Like, these are all things as humans that we do that come from survival times of when we were in the jungle. So it's the same thing. Like, when your kid is having anxiety, we have to think they're in a fight or flight right now. That's what's happening. So they can't hear me. There's no reasoning. So I'm just going to be here for when they need me, basically. There's a lot of anxiety that if we could just refocus it on our bodies and not as much trying to make sense of it all the time, we would be like really helping ourselves a lot, because really it's about slowing your heart rate down, lowering your body temperature. So other tips for your kids if they're having these problems is opening the windows, offering them some, one of the things I always say to people is, like, chewing is a signal of safety to your nervous system, because you can't eat and die at the same time. So chewing gum, like, that's why. So
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Me either, until one day, like, I learned about polyvagal because I love it, and the nervous system and the physical aspect of all the anxiety a lot. I approach anxiety often in terms of regulating your anxiety, it starts with the physical. That's where we start. We don't try to make sense. The stories our brains tell us are never helpful. Why am I anxious? It's because everybody hates me. It's because I'm going to get a divorce. It's because my kid's doing this. No, it's not. It's because there's a signal going through your body and you need to calm the signal down. That's why. We don't go into the story. The story is not helpful. So with all of that, you have to figure out what physical symptoms signal safety. So a lot of fun things. Polyvagal is really fun. So, like, the smile lines we have, they're a sign of safety. So when people smile at you, we feel relaxed it's like, that's how our nervous systems interact with each other. So there's a lot of stuff like that, like, you start to learn. And one of them is chewing. So I'll be like, can you chew gum is your kid old enough to chew gum? You can't chew gum and have a panic attack really at the same time. Like, because you can't, it eventually will calm you down. So obviously we don't want them to choke. So, like, it's always safety first, but there's, like, certain pieces you learn. So basically just safety first, making sure they're in a safe space, having a succinct statement where you say, I see you and I believe in you. You see the person and you believe in them. And then remembering to do the repair after. And then the other part that I was talking about was the actually helping them through the anxiety has to do usually with learning regulation skills, like physical, right? So bringing fresh air, putting a fan on a kid. Honestly, cold water. Like, I don't throw cold water on your kid, but if they're willing to go in the shower, or if they're willing to put do you guys have ice rollers? Like those roller things? So I recommend them to a lot of clients because if you ice roll your neck or your heart area, your chest area, or your wrists, like it will lower your body temperature, and that helps you be less anxious. So I use my ice roller like when I'm panicky. I like
roll your body.
Go to town.
All over, exactly. So, I don't know, is that helpful?
No, yeah. I mean, those are all really great take and go tips.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I'm a mama, okay? And I'm coming to see Robyn with my hubs. I want to get into it. I'm just going to cut the shit. Do you see a difference between men and women when it comes to children's anxiety, between the mom saying, hey, there's something wrong, and the dad just kind of being like, oh, they're fine? I need to get to the bottom of this.
I can't even let you finish because the answer is yeah. It is from the beginning, noticing the symptoms, mom. And I just have to say, because I'm very, like open gender, all of that. So we're going to talk in a binary and stereotypes right now because I do see them. I have to acknowledge though, like there are outliers and all of that. And there are 2 mom families and all of that. So I just want to make sure to acknowledge that.
Yes, 100%.
I see families of all types, but when I'm seeing a cis hetero couple, the answer is moms are the people who are doing all the legwork. They notice the symptoms, they make the phone calls, they, make sure that it works with our schedule. They set up the schedule. They make sure that it works for their husband's schedule before the husband has even like totally understood what was going on. And then all of a sudden we're in front of them and I'm working with them, and you can see how like it, even within the context, like the anxiety, oh, that comes from mom. Mom's so anxious. Like it's very like, oh, that's it. Like it's the way that the couple understands the kid's anxiety is often through like the mom's anxiety, because female anxiety tends to be more external. It tends to be more like control, make sure everyone else is okay. Like it's more of like a caretaking anxiety sort of thing. Whereas the husband or the dad's anxiety tends to be more of shutting down, walking away. And they often describe that as being like, I want to say like, no, I don't even deal with that. Like, I'm so chill. I'm so chill. Like, I'm just so chill. And so then I really have to listen for both sides of these things. But the mom is the one that's doing almost all the legwork and then also doing most of the work, like the actual work. It's my job to pull the dad in, which takes like a lot of finessing. Like there's a lot of finessing that happens with the dad. Like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Oh, do you think you could ever try this? It's a lot of like me trying to get the dad to be like, oh, do you think that might be, I don't know if it's anxiety, but like maybe like, it's a lot of like me softly kind of putting it out there. And I talked about parental accommodation. So like at first it's always like, oh, the mom accommodates. The mom, I don't put up with anything. I don't do anything. And then you'll find out that the whole accommodation was really with the dad. But like, it looks like it's the mom because she's the one that made us the plans, or she's the one that, so the gendered stereotype, the roles plays out a lot, and it's very hard and it's very frustrating. And I also feel like I have to do a dance with it because I don't ever want to, like, these dads are wonderful. And when they get past this point, they're completely essential to the work. And often they're the ones that do a lot of it, because once we can like really identify that anxiety exists within them, they are actually really capable of helping. So I can't turn people off by being angry and being
right.
Like
they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, of course. And society has not taught people, like society teaches people that women are anxious. We're naggy. We're controlling. We need everything to be right. Like we're all these things, and we can't let our husbands do anything because they don't do anything right and all of this stuff. But then the husbands don't really like, they don't acknowledge
anything right. I'm just joking.
Right. So then here we are. So they're not even doing therapy right. So literally, so I have to like, so I do it. I mean, I think I'm pretty good ultimately at getting there, but it's the mom comes in so direct, so open, so ready. And then I feel like the beginning is like the finessing of this other parent and getting them. And also I'm a woman. So then I'm like, there's part of that. I get dismissed a lot and I have to be like, oh yeah, blah, blah. It's like, it's in this sort of, it's hard. Men embracing mental health it's a stigma. And so when I'm trying to say, like, usually the mom will have been in therapy. So they have like their own work that they've already been doing. And they come to you ready to listen to you, like trusting you kind of. Whereas the dad's like, this is the first time I've ever sat down with someone. So, and that's obviously there's outliers. Like I have many dads that I also see that like aren't that. But when I do the parent work, when it's coming from the parent lens, it usually is not easy. And moms are doing all the legwork. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. I feel like it's very much a full-time job for them, to find the people, do the work, communicate with me, email, all this stuff. It's like becomes a whole job. And I have had moms take leaves from their jobs because of it, even though they had a full-time job and made good salaries and like contributed to their home. But the well-being of the child often falls on the mom. So I've had moms actually take leave to be able to sustain their child's mental health. So it's a lot. And the moms are carrying the team here. They are.
So if you had to give, let's just say mom is like, I'm going to put our kid in therapy and the other parent is not on board. What is your PSA for the second parent? Like if you, based on the success you see from both parents after we've gone through all of the finessing, the caressing, everyone's on board and we're starting to see success, what is the PSA you want to give to the default parent that is not on board so that maybe they go into their situation with their therapist with an open arm, open eye, open ear policy?
Are you talking, so for the dad?
Correct. In this situation of a heterosexual couple.
Right. So, and also what you were saying about the person who's not as involved or not as ready. So I would say that the PSA is it working the way it's going now? That's like when people come to me and they're hesitant, I'm always like, you don't have to change anything. Like, I'm just over here running a business. Like, but I never claim to be the one that knows what you should do in terms of if you should do anything. So the PSA is asking, are things working the way they're going? And then if they say no, which typically they are, because otherwise they wouldn't be coming out, you want to try another way. And I know that's not maybe the mic drop moment that people would want it to be, but I say it because it still puts the autonomy in their court, but it helps people frame things in a different way. So it's saying like, I'm not coming here giving you advice and convincing you. I'm asking you, oh, are you okay with this status quo? And that usually gets people to be like, I am not okay with the status quo.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is really important is when moms, I always say when you're doing a therapeutic approach, there's a risk to doing it and there's a risk to not doing it. And you have to choose which risk is higher. So if you have a kid that's like, not going to school, you might be like, this risk is pretty high. I need to do this work. If you have a kid that's pretty, high functioning and it's not having that concern, you might be like, I'm not willing to, but there's a risk to doing things and there's a risk to not doing things. And I think that's another thing that I try to tell people who are hesitant is you make whatever choice you want to make. Either one of them has a consequence. One is doing really hard work and seeing if it helps and maybe investing money and taking that risk that it won't work. Or the other one is don't do anything and things will be the same and they'll escalate. There's also another piece that is there is a developmental window where it's the best time to do this work and you can miss the window. It's not that you can't make change in the future, but if you can get a kid at a certain age, sort of like elementary, high elementary, maybe middle school, but like preschool elementary is like a really good developmental age to do work like this, because they're still young enough to really see their parents as like their guiding force. And so that's another kind of PSA that I would give is, if you're even thinking about this a little bit, consider your kid's age and will it be easier to do now than in 5 years? So that's another piece.
So we've been like diving deep into anxiety, right? And as adults, we think we know what anxiety is, how it manifests, but does it manifest differently in children? And at what age can we start to see, this manifestation?
Yeah, it definitely manifests differently. A lot of times with adults, it will be more like talking about worry, like being very worried about everything. For kids, it can be worry. Totally. You could get kids that seek reassurance all the time, that are very verbal with their anxiety, very verbal. It is procrastination. Procrastination is a very big sign of anxiety, and people think it's executive functioning, and they think it's or like opposition because they don't want to do work. But when someone is procrastinating, a kid's procrastinating on some sort of like task, a lot of times it's because they're perceiving a threat, and so they just shut down. So kids who like avoid homework or don't want to go to school, a lot of times that's actually like an anxiety response. A kid that's super introverted, but you don't feel like they're really, it's more about like an avoidance of social places. Class clowns are often a way to avoid and distract from their anxiety. So when you have kids that are like acting out a lot, and then people are like, oh, they're so like big and bad and all this stuff, when really like they're having a really serious social anxiety, and the way they're dealing with it is this. So behavior, 100%. Anger, kids can get really angry because they are super irritable because they're so anxious and they feel so out of control. Not being able to sleep is a big one. I think it gets missed more in kids because we want our kids to sleep so badly, and we end up trying to like train them. But really it could be like true anxiety, and then we need to think about it differently. So sleep, behavior, anger, really any emotion can manifest. I think about emotions as icebergs. So like the tip of the iceberg could be like anger, but underneath could be social anxiety. It could be feeling left out. It could be not knowing how to just participate in a classroom, not knowing how to raise your hand and ask a question. If you have a kid that's like not engaging, not participating, that could be anxiety. And the answer about how young, like I think there are people that will tell you, like I meet people that are little, like in elementary school age, and their parents will say, I knew from the beginning, like maybe their tantrums would just go on like a little longer. Like their fear was high. Their signal for fear was high. So they will some people will say younger, but I would say around like 3 or 4, I feel like we really end up seeing like what is anxiety versus maybe a skill. Like a lot of times when they're younger and they're not fully verbal, it's more about they're trying to develop a skill. But once they're like maybe 4-ish, and they can talk, and assuming their development was like pretty on par, you'll be able to see what their fears are, and their inability to be uncomfortable. And so I think around like that age, as they like emerge from toddlerhood, you can start to see it. Sometimes it's totally fine though, because parents are still taking care of everything, and then it becomes more obvious once they're with their peers more. So that's why I say I can work with parents of kids as young as 3 or 4, because I think there's still a lot of great work you can do. In elementary school, they get it a little bit more. Like the kids get it. Like, so they can see the difference between how they feel versus their friends and all that.
So I feel like we could talk for hours.
Literally.
Like we'll have to have you come back if you want to. Only if you want to. I think my last question is, how do parents find a therapist specifically for this? Like, how do they, like when you search online, do you see subspecialties? Like, how do I search for that in my area?
So you have to be careful with therapists. I know a lot of wonderful therapists, but there is no vetting for therapists. It's actually really interesting. Like you can get licensed. Once you get licensed, if you pay your license every couple of years, it's not like people check if you're telling the truth about your specialties or like, so you really do have to be careful with that stuff. I would look for definitely keywords, like look for someone that says works with parents of anxious children. Definitely look for how, like, about people that aren't saying they list like 17 specialties, like look for people that have specific identification. Yeah. Like you don't want people who are like, I work with this and this and this, because then it's like, okay, it's too much. Like you don't want someone who like works with couples and adults. And actually that's not true. My therapist is amazing and he works with everyone. So he might be an anomaly, but on his website, I don't feel like he listed all those things. So it's actually funny. But in general, if you want someone who works with parents of anxious kids, you really want to look for people, because working with parents of anxious kids is different than working with just anxiety. And it's different than working with like parent coaching or something like that. Like it's very specific. I would also start to learn the buzzwords of like space, Ellie Leibovitz. Like this is a gold standard for something like this. So you want to.
What did you say it was?
It's called SPACE, SPACE, and it stands for Supportive Parenting Anxious Childhood Emotions.
Oh.
And so it's specifically a formula that is used to do this. So you want to think about that. Lynn Lyons is a good one. So if people start to reference certain, leaders in the field, that shows you that they're specifically working with anxious kids of anxious parents, and they know what they're talking about because they've been trained by the people
specifically. I love the SPACE. I feel like SPACE is a very easy one to remember and one to ask. Yeah, that's good.
Incredible. And for that, for example, they have a website and it has a directory of where like therapists in your area. So, and it's like a little bit new, but it's definitely like people are jumping all over to get trained in it because it's becoming so important.
Yeah.
So I would say looking for, and then asking questions. Like once you get, I'm always blown away at the trust people feel when they send their kids to therapy. Like people just drop their, I like all power to them. Like I'm happy that I seem trustworthy, but I do think that you can ask questions. You can have an initial meeting. You can ask for a free consult. Most therapists I know do at least a 20-minute, half-hour like free phone call. You can set up a whole intake and do it with just you and not the kid if you want. Like, just you're the parent. Like something I say to people all the time is like, you're the parent. Like you get to ask the question. Just because I'm the one with the letters behind my name, I'm not an expert in your kid, and you get to decide where your kid goes, who you spend money on. I mean, the amount of trust that people put in me to like leave their kid in my room, like that is a lot. So if you want to get to know someone for a session or two, like that is fair. Like you might have to pay for it depending how long those are. But either way, like just asking those questions and saying, have you ever helped a kid like mine before? Have you ever helped someone get through school refusal? Have you ever helped a kid like make more friends? Like ask the specific, like what your goals are, ask those questions. So I would say it's who you're Googling, like what you're searching, and then also the questions you're asking.
We like to ask every queen that enters the Mom Bitch podcast to leave us with a tasteful piece of advice. So can you give us your best advice to send us off today?
No pressure.
I'm annoyed because I used it earlier, but it's when you're uncomfortable, you're growing.
Yeah.
So that is, I don't know if I should think of something cooler, but it's
that's it.
That's perfect.
Like it is what I've been living my life by for the past over 20 years, which is that anytime you find yourself uncomfortable in a social situation, in a work situation, anytime that you're feeling that discomfort, say to yourself, what is my opportunity here? Is it to filter out a friend? Is it to take on a new role? Is it to just learn more about yourself internally? So when you're uncomfortable, you're growing it is my guiding light. So that is what I would leave you with.
That's amazing.
Love it.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We are going to have all of Robyn's information listed in the description, including her famous Instagram. And we just have a disclaimer that we talked about very specific examples, but we are not blanketing any one particular person and or your experience you've had in life. We have to say that We are not giving medical advice. We're simply just trying to help connect resources to you. So please don't come at us.
Yeah. No.
And give Robyn
helping.
a break, okay? Yeah. Give her a break.
Give me a break. I'm tired.
She's done growing.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Mom Betches, we will talk to you soon. Women need to empower women, and our voice matters. Bitch.